Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's episode of Roundabout Sports presented by Harsh Construction LLC with over 50 years combined experience in home renovation, landscaping, and outdoor needs. Be sure to call 618-363-9818 for a free quote today. That is 618-363-9818. Let me say that one more time. That is 618-363-9818. Harsh Construction LLC. Also, of course, by us here at Interstate 70 Sports Media, where our passion is our profession. Thank you all so much for tuning in. It is a frigid Wednesday or Tuesday. It's a special Tuesday episode. Frigid Tuesday, January 20th, 2026. I'm the Maestro, Jeremy Karp, and we're going to kick things off with, of course, our usual spiel. And before we do, after we do, we got some big breaking news to bring about for everyone tuning in live. Of course, Roundabout Sports can be found on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Pocket Cast, Amazon Music, and any and all other streaming platforms that you have out there. Of course, follow us on Facebook, X, and subscribe to the official Interstate 70 Sports Media YouTube channel. And we're going to start. So here's the breaking news I wanted to bring up to everybody. So we just had two new inductees into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Of course, back in December, Jeff Kent was elected via the Contemporary Era Committee voting. But this time we have finally found out that there will be two new inductees, and both of whom, like I said, were center fielders. Carlos Beltran, former Cardinal, Met, and Astro. And, of course, now he joins along. Beltran was elected in his fourth year on the ballot, 84.2% of the vote. And also, of course, the second center fielder, Andruw Jones. Now, most notably, he had played for the Atlanta Braves, but he also played for the Dodgers, Rangers, White Sox, Yankees, and also played in Japan. Now, Jones was named on 78.4% of the ballots. For those that don't know, you have to reach the 75% threshold. Now, we do got a comment in early on from David Marchant. It says, quote, a former Cardinal, why did he leave the Catholic Church? Well, that's a good question for me, but a good question to ask him. I'm not so sure about that one, but yes, Carlos Beltran and Andruw Jones have been inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame. And be sure to submit your comments and questions, and we will do our best to answer them on air as we do every week. Normally, my co-host, Adam Frex, would be with me, may be able to make it tonight, but we will go from there just in case. Now, this Hall of Fame ballot, so let me go through with the three that are inducted, or at least the two that got inducted tonight. So Beltran is a former 9-time All-Star. He won 3 Gold Gloves, hitting a career 279 during his 20-year career, 435 home runs, 2,725 hits, and even notched 312 stolen bases. There are only 4 players in baseball history to have 2,700 hits, 400 homers, and 300 steals. The other 3 are Barry Bonds, Willie Mays, and Alex Rodriguez. I mean, that right there is pretty good company. And Beltran becomes the 5th Puerto Rican, or the 5th player born in Puerto Rico to be elected to the Hall. Now, this isn't including Edgar Martinez. Edgar was born in New York, but he grew up and attended high school in Puerto Rico. As far as Jones, he will be best remembered probably for the defensive prowess during his first decade plus of his career. He is only one of 6 outfielders in the entire history of Major League Baseball to win 10 or more gold gloves. He hit .254 with 434 homers in his 17 years in baseball. So I will say, I look at some of the other names on the ballot and how they did, and whether we'll go through some of them. Once again, like I said, you need to make 75% of the 75% threshold to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. You get 15 years on the ballot, or if you don't make 5% on your first year, you get eliminated from future ballots, which happened to some people. Most notably, Ryan Braun. As Ryan Braun only received 3.5%. But let's go through, let's go through some of the notable names that did not make it this year. We have Chase Utley, who had a huge surge from last year. He's up to 59.1% this year. Andy Pettit, 48.5%. Felix Hernandez at 46.1% of the votes. And A-Rod at 40%, and Manny Ramirez at 38.8% of the votes. Another name a lot of people wanting to talk about is former MVP Jimmy Rollins, who finished with 25.4% of the vote. Now, I will say, it's really nice to see. This is such a prestigious honor. And once again, Chase Utley got a 19.3% gain from last year. Now, this was the 8th ballot for Andy Pettit, and this was the 2nd ballot for Felix Hernandez, both of whom gained more than 20% from last year. Now, I will say, you have 10 ballots, my apologies. And this was Manny Ramirez's final ballot, and he only received 38.8%. And what's interesting is, of all the first-time players on the ballot for this year, only one of them received enough votes to remain on the ballot for next year, and that was former pitcher Cole Hamels. He received 23.8% of the vote. So yes, once again, Beltran became AL Rookie of the Year with the Royals in 1999. We mentioned became a 9-time All-Star, multi-time Silver Slugger, and Gold Glover. Now, he won the World Series in 2017 with Houston and won the pennant with the Cardinals back in 2013. But he was a big part of those 2010 Cardinals teams during the Mike Matheny era. He had a great combination of power and speed. And he was a switch hitter too, so, just a few years removed from Edgar Martinez getting inducted. Now, also, once again, we talked about Andruw Jones. His first year on eligibility, he received 7.3% of votes. Here we are on his 9th ballot, and he got 78%. And he is tied for the 3rd most Gold Gloves among outfielders. The only 2 that have more than him are Willie Mays and the great Roberto Clemente. I mean, both were great. Both of them have 12. And once again, You know, his fielding, his defensive skills were really what made him thrive, and what is a big part of his Hall of Fame case. Because offensively, his .254 career batting average is the lowest for a Hall of Fame outfielder. But he hit 434 home runs, like we said. And, Willie Mays, Ken Griffey Jr., and Mike Schmidt are the only other players with at least 400 home runs and 10 Gold Gloves. And Mays and Barry Bonds are the only other outfielders with at least 7 Gold Glove seasons in which they hit over 30 home runs. So, of course, injuries and off-field issues also really affected Jones's career and probably his outlook in the eyes of the committee. But I'm excited for the sake of seeing both of these gentlemen in the Hall of Fame. So congratulations to Carlos Beltran and Andruw Jones on being inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame alongside Jeff Kent for the class of 2026. So with all that said, folks, we're talking about baseball, but man, we had a wild weekend in the NFL. We also had a wild weekend in college football, or wild yesterday in college football, as Indiana won their first ever. And this is something I have to just kind of do a quick tidbit on this. I have to do a quick thing on this because it really cracks me up. The Indiana Hoosiers have had a football team since 1899. They've won 6 bowl games since then. 3 of them were this season. So you're telling me, and before that, they hadn't won a bowl game since 1991. So you're telling me between now and 1990, or they had as many bowl wins this season as they did from 1991 and 1899, or reverse it, 1899 and 1991. However you want to look at it. Like, wow. That is crazy. But yes, before we get into the NFL playoff talk, yes, the Indiana football team, the Hoosiers, beat the Miami Hurricanes in the national championship last night. Went undefeated. They won 27-21 over number 10 ranked Miami. And what's interesting is some people are calling it the most improbable turnaround in college football history. And I also want to say they become the first team since the Florida Gators in, I believe, 1996 to win their first national championship. So they, what's amazing is the way by the fourth quarter, offenses would really get up in a high gear. And it was so much fun. Fernando Mendoza was this year's Heisman Trophy winner. And what's funny is because for decades, Indiana was an afterthought in college football. They were a basketball school, but head coach Curt Cignetti really has changed the culture of this school. And it is amazing to see how well they respond. They've usually been the doormat for a lot of seasons in college football, but yeah, I'm loving this. This has been great. They were my pick last week when Adam and I were on the show. I had told people that I was rolling with Indiana over Miami. And Miami had one final chance with $1.47 remaining, but in a roughing the passer penalty helped out. But Carson Beck threw an interception to Jamie Sharp with 44 seconds left, and Indiana ran out the clock. Now, this is what's also really interesting about this game. So Fernando Mendoza was the Heisman Trophy winner this year. He led Indiana to their first national title. He grew up a mile away from Miami's campus. And his father was a high school teammate of Miami head coach Mario Cristobal. His mother played tennis in Miami. He was not even offered a scholarship by Miami. And, you know, it's funny because since the season opener, this was the first game since then that Mendoza didn't even have a passing touchdown. But I will say this, excuse me, his 12-yard touchdown on fourth down might honestly be, from me, one of the most memorable scores in college, and definitely Indiana history, but to me, almost college football history. It was a storybook ending that you just love reading about. And I love, seeing these stories. And Miami did take the lead. There was plenty of time. Miami just had to hold them. Mendoza, though, drove down the field. And, excuse me, in the end, here we are with the Hoosiers. And Alberto Mendoza, the backup, and Fernando's younger brother, actually just entered the transfer portal. And he is rumored to be a favorite if he gets recruited by a school such as Georgia Tech. So I'm excited to see how that plays out. Some may say it's either leaving his brother's shadow or just wanting to get that starting job that you're sure that he was certain of. So I'm excited to see how it plays off. I'm just sad it's the end of the college football season. Also, one more thing about the college football season in Indiana. I love how, excuse me, Lee Corso, this was his last season doing College Game Day. Well, this was his last year, opening week. And he coached Indiana from 1973 to 1982. And what happens in his last year? They win their first national title. So kudos on them. So with that, we're going to go from the college level to the pro NFL level. We'll be back in just about 30 seconds to talk about the wild weekend we had in the divisional round and what to expect in the championship round. So stay tuned on Roundabout Sports. We'll be right. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in to Roundabout Sports, whether you're tuning in live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, or if you are going to be listening to this later on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, any and all of your streaming platforms. So let's talk about the NFL's divisional weekend. Man, it was a crazy one. Okay, so I guess I'm going to have to kind of just go down and figure out how we're going to talk about some of the big winners of this of this weekend, and I don't mean just the winners of the games. All right, so I was wrong in the Patriots-Texans prediction that I had. Patriots just absolutely dominated Houston. 5 C.J. Stroud turnovers. Oof. The Rams picked up a clutch win over the Chicago Bears in overtime after Chicago had a miraculous, I don't even know if I'd call it a Hail Mary, but they sure as hell, it was a just insane throw with on 4th down in the 4th quarter with 18 seconds left. Then you had Denver and Buffalo, and people thought Buffalo was going to march into Denver and steamroll Denver. Thought Bo Nix didn't have it. Well, that game ended up costing, 4 Josh Allen turnovers end up costing head coach Sean McDermott his job, but Denver's win did not come without a cost, as Bo Nix suffered a broken bone in his ankle that required surgery. So he is out for the rest of the season. So we have the Patriots and the Broncos in the AFC Championship game. And the last time that happened, it was Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. Now we got Drake May and Jared Stidham. It would have been Drake May and Bo Nix injury if the injury didn't happen, but it's crazy to think about nevertheless. On top of that, we go to the NFC. I wish Adam was on because I could tell him how right he was. Seattle put the absolute boot to ass on San Francisco. It was not even close. 41-6. And it led to defense coordinator Robert Saleh going to Tennessee to become their new head coach. So, yeah, I'm just in absolute disbelief over the divisional round weekend. Of course, Drake May, the whole Patriots organization were big winners, and I think Mike Vrabel even more so than Drake May, because all of this is 2 years removed from being fired by the Tennessee Titans. And the Titans are currently looking for their second head coach since then. Vrabel's in the AFC Championship game. Vrabel's a Coach of the Year candidate. And the players love him. This is, and it looks like the Patriots are finally back to having stability in their franchise. Now, the defense was, what's funny is heading into this game, we were all talking about, and I especially was guilty of this, talking about Houston's defense. Houston had the top defense. They had the great D-line. It was the secondary you got to watch out for. Man, oh man. New England did not take very kindly to that, I guess. Of course, it'd be nice if, NFL players listen to the show. But that said, it was amazing because the Patriots played complimentary football because of the defense. In 2 playoff games, this Patriots defense has allowed just 19 points. It's a well-oiled machine and a solidified unit. They held the Houston rushing offense that dominated Pittsburgh the week before to just 8 yards in the first half. Now, there were some good things about this Texans team. Yes, the defense was still good. 5 turnovers put you, one of which was a pick 6, put you in bad field position. Will Anderson had 3 sacks and 2 forced fumbles. And he was named an All-Pro for the first time for a reason. So we're going to go now to Denver, where we're going to talk about the Broncos and the Bills. Okay, first things first, kudos to head coach Sean Payton. This is a team that 2 years ago just lost 70-20 to the Miami Dolphins, who are also who were up until a couple days ago looking for a new head coach as well. Excuse me. So it's amazing how far this team has come, because now they're the number 1 seed and they're hosting the AFC Championship game. Granted, once again, they have to do it without Bo Nix, but Bo Nix did just enough to help this team this weekend. I'm still amazed Sean McDermott got fired for Buffalo, but there's so many issues on this Buffalo team. You have a friend of mine put it best. Buffalo is a team with 3 wide receiver 2s and not 1 wide receiver 1. Buffalo is prepared for running the ball, but at the end of the day, Josh Allen can only do so much. And James Cook can only do so much. And also, to me, this comes down to Brandon Beane as GM. And yet somehow he still got promoted because he's drafted 56 players since he took over. And only 2 not named Josh Allen are Pro Bowlers. James Cook and Dalton Kincaid. 2 out of 56 players are Pro Bowlers since 2016. Yeah, that you cannot just put on the coach. So a lot of factors that go into that. And it's something Buffalo's going to have to figure out over the offseason as they begin their new head coach search. I will say, kudos to Denver's defense for buckling down and getting the turnovers when they needed to most, especially one to close out the first half that led to a late field goal for Denver. So we're going to oh my gosh. I can't even find a good thing to say for San Francisco. It was just Seattle from top to bottom. You literally started the game with a kickoff return for a touchdown by Rashid Shaheed. And it was just downhill from there for San Francisco. There was no chance. So I have nothing but good things for Seattle and bad things all the way around for San Francisco. And the Rams and the Rams proved that experience matters. The last throw that was made by the Bears that basically ended up costing them the game in overtime was an interception Caleb threw to the Rams. But DJ Moore was very lackluster on his route, and I don't blame Caleb Williams fully on the errant throw. Probably miscommunication. But that said, the Rams, Matt Stafford, Puka, Kyron Williams, they all took advantage. This Rams team has come to play, and I'm ready for one hell of a NFC Championship round between the Los Angeles Rams and the Seattle Seahawks. Then we get into the AFC Championship game between the Broncos and Patriots. And I'm going to tell you, that's just going to be a gung-ho, down-to-earth, smash-mouth style of football. I expect a lot of running, a lot of ground and pound. And it's going to end up – and I know we'll probably, as the week goes on, go more into greater detail. But looking at it from my perspective, I mean, the Patriots still seem like the better team here. Of course, the odds, are going to put the Broncos as the spread is minus 4.5 for New England. And it's interesting. So in 17 games this year, Drake May completed 72% of his passes, over 4,300 yards and 31 touchdowns. He only had 8 picks. Not only is he a great quarterback, he's a great game manager. Doesn't mean he's a system quarterback. It just means he knows when to make throws and when not to. So I'm looking overall how this goes. And it seems like a lot of people are having the Patriots still as it's a toss-up. It is a close toss-up. For the Broncos to be the underdogs at home, I mean, it's really crazy to think about. But damn, I don't know. I don't know who I got in this game. Everybody, tell me who you think. Oh, well, speak of which, we do have Eddie tuning in. So thank you so much, Eddie, as always. We're talking about the AFC and NFC championship games. So, you know what? I'm going to put it this way. I'm going to go to the NFC first because to me, it's easier. Yes, the Rams are clutch and unstoppable. I'm going with Seattle. Seattle, to me, is the best team in the NFL. Seattle has been the most dominant team. And the defense just proved it's not even just the defense, it's the offense and the special teams. Going into this game with San Francisco, everybody thought that Drew Lock was going to start because Sam Darnold was injured. Well, Sam Darnold started, but he still didn't have to do much. 3 touchdowns for Kenneth Walker for K9. So, Eddie, I love you, but I'm going to disagree. He says the Patriots and Rams. I got Seattle going to the Super Bowl. And, I'm as much as I love taking the underdogs, and it's still crazy to think they're the underdogs at home, I'm probably going to have to go New England. I think we're gonna have a Super Bowl rematch, but I think it's going to be New England and Seattle in the Super Bowl. I do think losing Bo Nix hurts the sake of the Broncos offense. And New England's coming off, a massive win at home. So, yeah, my Super Bowl prediction will be the New England Patriots taking on the Seattle Seahawks. Now, you're going to have to tune in another time to figure out the projections of that game. And that's a more in-depth preview and everything. Now, we got Dakota from the Blues Fan Forum podcast saying Broncos versus Seahawks. Once again, first off, be sure to check out the Blues Fan Forum podcast every Monday night at 6:30. They are the premier St. Louis Blues podcast out there, and we're proud to have them aboard. He's got the Broncos and the Seahawks, and man, oh man, do I remember that Super Bowl. 43-8. Oof. It gives me a headache just thinking about it. But that would be a good one as well. The problem is just, it's not that Jared Stidham can't do it. It's having a hard time selling to us the notion of Jared Stidham doing it. So, yeah. I personally have the Seahawks and Patriots. I'm riding the hot hands. I will say this, with this whole thing with Josh Allen, and, this might be the closest he'll ever get to the Super Bowl. If this is the closest Josh Allen gets to the Super Bowl, also, I'm going to say this. Let me really say this. If the Broncos win this week and go to the Super Bowl and beat either the Rams or Seahawks, it's going to hurt the Bills a million times worse. Excuse me. The reason being, Eddie says the reason I'm picking the Rams is Seattle's top running back is out. Eddie, once again, I love you. Kenneth Walker is the top running back in Seattle. Zach Charbonnet is the backup, although he's the lead receiving running back, and he's a big change of pace back. And yes, he is injured. Now, you're asking me, here is Jared Stidham taking a snap this year for the Broncos. Yes, he has. He threw one attempt for -1 yards. So, yeah, he's not really done anything this season. I don't know. I mean, if you go on Pro Football Reference, for example, it'll show up as he hasn't thrown anything, but other stats will say otherwise. But no, he's played in one game, and it just nothing. No. So basically, no, he hasn't. And so that's why it raises a lot of questions and why a lot of the sports books have the Denver Broncos as the underdogs. Now, it is funny because at the beginning of the season, RotoWire had the Ravens projected to win the AFC and the Bills and Chiefs to be in the hunt. Well, we all know how that went. So, but once again, that's the AFC. Whatever the case is, it is crazy to think that we are already at the cusp of the end of the NFL season. Which means, excuse me, it is time to figure out a way. We're going to end the show. We're going to wrap it up. But before I do, I got to do my favorite segment on the show because, you know, there is a lot going on with this team. First off, I want to say welcome to this week's episode or this week's edition of my favorite segment of Roundabout Sports. Just how bad do the New York Jets suck? Oh, I love doing this, but this next week will probably be my last week doing that because, you know, it's near the end of the season. So, obviously, off season's upon us for a lot of teams, upon us for the Jets, really, before anybody else. And with that comes the projections and the predictions and the rumors of who goes where. So, the Jets were predicted to take a QB in the 2026 draft. Now, Oregon quarterback Dante Moore decided to stay in Oregon for another year, so now he's off the board. A lot of people think they were going to roll with Justin Fields or Tyrod Taylor or Brady Cook. Well, this is an interesting one because from what I've heard, projections have the New York Jets trading for a $230 million quarterback. And no, it is not Deshaun Watson. It is none other than Call of Duty man himself, Kyler Murray. Apparently, the Jets will trade for Kyler Murray and give him his second chance in the league after his failures in Arizona. Murray's a bad fit for a team that wants to run a lot of under center offense, according to Aaron Schatz. And the Jets ran the 8th most shotgun or pistol sets, which would be better suited for Kyler Murray's strengths. After 5 games, he was this past season, Murray was shut down with a foot injury. And 3 of the last 4 seasons, injuries have taken a toll on Kyler. And what's crazy is in 2026, he has a cap hit of $53 million, just over $53 million. So will the Jets trade for him? What will the Jets do? Who knows? Who cares? The only thing I know is that the New York Jets suck, and it's probably not going to change that way anytime soon. With that, folks, we are going to wrap it up this week on a little shorter and sweeter episode of Roundabout Sports. Might have another one later this week, but as always, be sure to find us on Facebook, on X, on Interstate 70 Sports Media's Facebook page, and on the YouTube channel. Go to Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Pocket Cast, Amazon Music, any and all other streaming platforms out there. And of course, we always put up the NAMI helpline at the end of every show. And for that, you dial 1-800-950-NAMI. That is 1-800-950-NAMI. The National Alliance on Mental Illness is the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization dedicated to building better lives for millions who struggle with mental health issues. And of course, we always put up the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at the end of every show. For that, you dial 988. The line is open 24/7, 365, 366 on leap years. Understand that you are never alone in this world. There is always somebody who loves you, who cares about you, wants nothing but the best for you. We all go through struggles and trials and tribulations, and you matter. Your opinions matter. Your feelings matter. And you're just a phone call, an email, a text message, an appointment away from what could be that life-saving moment. And you could be the listening ears and watchful eyes for somebody in need as well. So once again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And until next time, I'm the Maestro Jeremy Karp. And remember, life is a book full of empty pages just waiting to be written in. Make your lives worth reading. Good night, everybody. We'll see you